Good evening, everybody. I will call the meeting to order. Good evening to everybody who may be following us online. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards, Leader of the Council and Chairman of Cabinet. There being no members of the public present, I'm going to dispense with the health and safety notices, but I would remind everybody to have their mobile phones please turn to silent. Go to agenda item 1, please, Mark. Apologies for absence.
Chairman, all Cabinet members are present.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest in matters before the meeting. Are there any additional declarations, colleagues? There's none. Thank you. Item 3 is to approve the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting. That's page 116 in your pack. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 4, very simply, this is to advise that there are two parts to this meeting. The first part, part 1, of the discussion in public, and you are absolutely encouraged to follow this along. Part 2, though, are those matters that are more commercial in nature, that are sensitive and therefore are considered privately. However, the topic and the decision are published, and we also publish at item 12 a report that gives more detail on those matters, as we are seeking to be as transparent as possible but without breaching the confidentiality issues. So, as I said, two parts, part 1 and part 2. We're moving into part 1. Item 5, the Council Strategy 2022 to 2026. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Leader. Very pleased to move this paper on our Council Strategy. And at the top of page 18 are the two recommendations, which includes moving this on to the November Council meeting for full adoption by whole Council. The importance of a Council strategy is really to make sure that the purpose of what we're trying to achieve is clearly understood, and how we intend to go about trying to achieve that. It's, by its very nature, it's a strategic document rather than an operational document. And there will be lots of different documents and papers and plans that hang off of this, which are equally important, but they get their strength from what this is trying to achieve. So this is making very clear as to what we as an administration for the next 4 years wish to see happen, what our ambitions are, and what we consider to be vitally important to ensure that this council, which is a major significant impact upon so many residents, is directing its resources in a way that delivers improvement and builds upon the very good work that has happened over the previous years. And despite all the strong headwinds that we are now facing financially and whatever, the foundation stones that we have in place on which this strategy is built remain absolutely solid, including, of course, and I will quite happily say it, our strong financial management position, which gives us the confidence and the ability to be bold and to be very clear about what kind of council we want and how we want to deliver more improvements over the next 4 years. And indeed, there are things in our budget plans already and developments, and there are holes in ground being filled up across the borough. And there are plans being worked on various aspects across the borough that will actually see change, and changes that we believe will be for the best. The consultation that we carried out has been very supportive of the general direction, but of course it is backed up by the real consultation that took place in May, when over 70,000 residents had their say as to what kind of council and what kind of direction they wanted Hillingdon to be run. And I'm very pleased that they endorsed our approach, and this document gives us the opportunity to fulfil our ambitions and make sure that what we want to happen become achievements. On that basis, Leader, I will move formally those recommendations and look forward to a debate in Council.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mills. I would just like to add or invite our Chief Executive to take back our thanks to the officers. Although quite a concise strategy document appears, beneath that are hours and hours of consultation and work across the organisation bringing this together in such a concise way. I just wish that to be recognised and thanks to be passed down to the people who delivered it. Colleagues, those two recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 6, Hillingdon Safeguarding Partnership Annual Report. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to present this excellent report this evening to Cabinet, and I would be asking that we note the recommendations and also the strategic priorities for the coming year 22-23, which you can find on page 49. The Hillingdon Safeguarding Partnership Annual Report summarises the work carried out by the partnership to support adults with support and care needs and vulnerable children and families. The contents of the report provides assurance that we have discharged our statutory duties during this period to ensure that we learn from serious incidents and provide strategic leadership for safeguarding. This has been considered by the Children, Families and Education Select Committee, and their comments can be found on page 48, and the Health and Social Care Select Committee, who have not made specific comments. There are both Adults and Children's Board, which set individual priorities, but also set shared priorities, such as domestic abuse and practice development. A very important part of safeguarding incorporates learning from practice, and this forms the key principles of both partnerships, and I am pleased to see there are many examples contained in this report. Our serious case panel is chaired by a Met Police Detective Superintendent who is responsible for safeguarding, and the learning from these panels is disseminated through the comprehensive training programme, which has included self-neglect and hoarding, sex pressures and social media, domestic abuse, intimate partner violence, to name a few. 100% of delegates rated their understanding of the topic following the training as very good to excellent. In our adult service, there has been a significant increase in referrals related to domestic abuse, self-neglect and mental health, partly due to the pandemic. I must thank Adult Social Care, who developed the approved mental health workflow on the internal database to enable more efficient information sharing internally between social work teams. It improves risk assessment and can prevent safeguarding concerns and facilitate more effective response where needed. There are many excellent pieces of work in here in what can be a very, very difficult area for social workers and everybody involved. So I will move this report and ask for it to be the strategic priorities to be noted. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Leader, and Councillor Palmer, who introduced tonight's agenda item on the Hillingdon Safeguarding Partnership Report. This report started the year off within the COVID pandemic, and as restrictions lifted, as was sadly expected, there has been an increase in safeguarding activity. In turn, an increase on the services, both statutory and preventative, that we provide to our residents. This was also another year of collaborative work between partnership organisations, ensuring that during the challenge and coming out of the pandemic, safeguarding arrangements have remained adaptable, continuing to shine the light on awareness of the risk of abuse for the neglect on children and that of domestic violence that some of our young children are not protected from. With the continuation to keep our identified children safe, as well as the new referrals that came into the attention of our multi-agency teams. In August 2021, the Council launched the Stronger Families Service. This is an avenue to early intervention and help and the development of a local community network to support children and families. This is now embedded as part of our Stronger Families Hub, a 24-hour point of contact triage system, of which in the first 10 months there have been over 19,000 contacts, and the Hub has initiated interventions and support for over 1,400 families. The vision of Hillingdon Safeguarding Partnership is for every child and young person to feel safe, enjoy good physical, emotional and mental health, and have pride in their unique identity, feel that they belong, and have opportunities to thrive. The Safeguarding Children Partnership priorities for 2022-2023 are stronger families, child sexual abuse and contextual safeguarding. I want to thank also the officer teams and partnership organisations that have worked together on this report and behind the scenes to change the lives of children and young people in this borough. I support the recommendation that's on page 47.
Thank you very much, Councillor O'Brien. Both yourself and Councillor Palmer, would you please take back our thanks as a Cabinet for the work of the partnership and the work that they do. Critically important. So please, they should hear that from us. But also, you have my thanks for your own leadership in this role. I know that the partnership is independent, but guidance from us and from you as the Cabinet leads is valued, and I thank you for your role in that. Colleagues, so there's 3 recommendations agreed.
Agreed.
Agenda item 7, consultation on changes to school admission arrangements. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you very much, Leader. I propose agenda item 7, the changes to the admission criteria for a community school. The recommendations are set out in 1 to 3 and are set out on page 94 of the papers tonight. So this paper asks Cabinet to consider the proposal for Coteford Infant School to reduce its published PAN from 81 to 60 children per year, to undertake a full consultation. The report will return to the Cabinet meeting on the 16th of February to consider the consultation responses. In addition, we expect a proposal following consultation from Grange Park Infant and Nursery and Junior Schools to also reduce their PAN by 30 pupils, equating to 1 form of entry, and therefore a reduction from 4 forms of entry down to 3 for the school. Cabinet will know that Hillingdon Council has a statutory responsibility to secure sufficient school places for children residing in Hillingdon. We have seen over the past 4 years that in both early years and primary settings, schools are experiencing a reduction in pupil numbers. Therefore, it is important that the Council plan sufficiently with schools when their admission numbers start to decline, and especially when year groups become undersubscribed, thus causing a burden on schools' budgets, resources and planning. Schools are funded per pupil, not per pupil place. Therefore, a reduction in pupil and not PAN leads to a school reporting a deficit budget, which can and has in some instances put the Council in a position whereby a maintained school may seek an application for the Council to cover a licence deficit loan, which comes from an already stretched dedicated schools grant. To prevent that, this is what this type of policy is for. I therefore move.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Item 8, the local list of buildings of architectural and historic importance. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Leader. This report gives the results of the public consultation for the proposed entries on the Council's local list of buildings in respect of 2 buildings, or 2 sets of buildings, the 305 to 315 and 317 to 327 Long Lane, and the recommendation there following the consultation is that is added to the list of locally listed buildings. In respect of the Paddington Packet Boat Public House, further evidence has emerged following the consultation and is shown in Appendix 2 of an updated photograph of that building, which would show it has some of the features we wished to list have now disappeared anyway, and the building is in deteriorating condition. Therefore, officers have been asked to reconsider whether that actually merits inclusion. So at this stage, we're including the building in Long Lane, and the other one is being reconsidered, and that covers the 3 recommendations on the top of page 104, which I now move.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Are those 3 recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Item 9, the school capital programme update. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Leader. Well, as we just heard in item 2 items ago, the pressure on our general schools for places has reduced. We've spent years of increasing pressure, and that now has waned. So we're actually looking at reducing school places rather than increasing them. So one might ask, why are we spending capital on schools? However, the reality is that whilst general pupils are decreasing, the special educational needs and disability part of our school population, SEND, is increasing significantly. And it is that this report and the money that is being spent on the schools expansion programme is directed at. And so this report outlines the details of that. This report's purpose is to note where we are, and it shows that we are making progress in expanding that provision significantly in various different locations across the borough. And on that basis, I will move the recommendation and leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, progress noted? Thank you. Did you wish to speak? Sorry. Well, please speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight this evening in this report because there is obviously there's quite a lot to it, and exactly what Councillor Bianca has just said. But I just wanted to highlight that on page 122, in connection with the secondary school places, we are still in primary years 5 and year 6. There is still a larger amount of primary school children as there are places coming on board, and although we generally answer that with bulge classes and hoping that obviously we will be able to continue to work through that, but I also wanted to highlight as well that there's one planned secondary expansion school, is Hillingdon School, which is currently undergoing a new build and will be finishing shortly, so that's where we hope that we will have some of those places. But also to point out that the new free school, Bishop Arden, in the north of the borough, is actually under review now with the DFE, and officers are involved in the ongoing discussions about the free school. What I should point out is that officers continue to look at sufficiency. We know that this is very changing times, but this data is crucial to ensuring that we do meet demand, and our officers are on top of that, and I just wanted to point that out in this forum tonight.
Thank you. It is important to note that all our population numbers with regards to schools is decreasing in primary but increasing for a period for secondary, and it makes it very, very difficult for yourself and officers to balance that, particularly with our capital investment. So we are making good progress on that, as the report says and has been noted. We turn to agenda item 10, which is in the agenda B, and this is item 10, the consideration of setting a licence budget deficit for 3 schools in the borough. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you very much, Leader. And again, I suppose we've touched on this topic a number of times this evening. So this is to set a licence deficit budget for 2022-2023 for 3 of our maintained schools within the borough. The recommendations are on page 2 of the Cabinet Agenda B paper. So the recommendations this evening are to seek approval for licensed school deficits for Bishop Winnington Ingram. This is a Church of England primary school which currently has a cumulative deficit of £534,000 being carried forward into 2022-2023. This was previously a 2-form of entry school. However, PAN numbers significantly changed, and by 2019 the school went down to 1 form of entry. The school has now completed a number of actions to address the financial position. This year there has been an in-year savings of £33,000. So after a number of years, that is a positive for us. And officers will continue to work with the school and the London Diocesan Schools Board to work towards financial stability for this school. Holy Trinity Church of England Primary School also has reduced its deficit this year between 2021 to 2022 down to £29,000. Holy Trinity is a very small 1 form of entry, oversubscribed primary school within Northwood, and however it is the lowest funded school within Hillingdon. So once again, officers will continue to work as they have done in previous years with the school, and also again with the Diocesan Board, to work towards financial stability within there. within that school as well. And thirdly, Oakwood School, which has reduced its deficit again between 2021 and 2022, bringing into 22-23 a £2.5 million deficit. Oakwood, its deficit relates to historically having low numbers. This has been addressed by having a whole school new build, which they have now had for the last 5 years, becoming a co-educational establishment, which has now run through all forms of boy entry, and also the pupil numbers have increased. In the last academic year, the school was awarded as a good by Ofsted. So I think that, in an open forum this evening, I would like to congratulate the head teacher of Oakwood and his staff for that achievement, because that has been obviously very challenging. Officers will continue to work with this school to achieve a balanced budget deficit as well. The school, with the agreement of their governors, are required to notify the local authority to agree and set a licensed deficit budget for a specific period of time, and usually for one financial year. That's why these schools come up on an annual basis. The licence enables schools to function and reposition themselves for the future. The full report, as I said, is on the report itself is on page 1 to 5, and I therefore move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ryan. These are challenging times for many, many people, not least our schools, and it is right that we look carefully at these budget deficits and to approve them on an annual basis. However, it isn't a case that we just will automatically roll these over, and ultimately we have to look at the larger picture of declining pupil numbers, and we will need to take a view about the shape of our school estates strategically over the next medium-term period. I know that you're working on that, but within the context of us giving assurance that work is going on, colleagues, do we agree to these three budget?
Agree.
Thank you. The final item on the penultimate item on the part 1 is the monthly Council Budget Monitoring Report. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Leader. This is the report for month 5 of the 2022-2023 financial year, our current financial year, and this reflects the position as it was at the 31st of August of this year. In summary, I must say that this report is a further indication of our sound financial position and stability that we have achieved in what I can only characterise as challenging circumstances. Within the General Fund revenue account, we have an underspend against budget of £60,000, and that reflects in our general balances, which we project by the end of the financial year at 31st of March 2023 will amount to £26.8 million. Okay. This position is broadly consistent with the figures which were reported to Cabinet for month 3, and so that is encouraging. Behind the scenes, a little bit, we have had a number of things to deal with. First of all, central government support in the form of funding for COVID-19 pressures ceased as at the 31st of March 22, in other words, at the end of the last financial year. And so we are on our own, like all other authorities, in dealing with these costs. We had an element of them reflected within our budget, but our pressures within the current financial year are projected to be £14.6 million, and that is £3.3 million higher than our original budget. These, of course, therefore, are being met from our earmark reserves, which are designed for that very purpose. In addition to that, of course, like everybody else in this country, we are subject to exceptional inflationary pressures, and indeed those also are being covered within earmark reserves which were designated for this purpose. However, I think it is quite encouraging that we can see some small positive signs which are going to reduce that draw upon earmark reserves in the year. First of all, there have been some external factors which are playing in our favour. Very importantly, we've seen one of the largest trade unions who are involved in the public sector pay settlement indicate their acceptance of the current offer which is on the table. Obviously, we have to wait for the other unions to agree to that, but I think that's a strong indicator. Additionally, we have seen the removal of the planned or the actually implemented increase in national insurance costs, which we've been able to remove from our cost pressures. We have benefited, I think, from a negotiation process which we've been working through with our outsourced contractors, which actually has seen us striving to settle demands for increased settlements. Obviously, that is influenced by things such as the government's cap on energy costs, which I might add doesn't actually affect us because we had brought forward our energy for the current financial year. So a number of positive external factors which play in our benefit. In addition to that, we're seeing some early signs of our own transformation programme starting to generate benefits which are reducing the reliance on earmarked reserves. So my expectation is that that reliance on earmarked reserves will continue to reduce throughout the current financial year, which of course is a very important factor. Looking at our savings programme, our savings programme is projected at generating savings against the general fund of £13.3 million within the year. We are on track to deliver £12.3 million of those savings. The one remaining problem area being the savings that we were projected to achieve in the contract with our leisure centres. However, there are positive signs that we can achieve and deliver some savings, not all of them, but we will actually, I think, be able to chisel away at that million target during the course of this year. Looking at the dedicated schools budget, which of course we now have our safety valve agreement in place and operating effectively. Again, we're suffering inflationary pressures, and so looking at our high needs placements within the dedicated schools grant, there is inflation of about £500,000 working against that. But nevertheless, we do see a situation up ahead where at the start of the financial year we had a deficit of £23.5 million. By the end of this financial year, we will see that reduced to £21.8 million. So definitely travel in the right direction there. Housing revenue accounts, we have a favourable budget position in terms of our actual performance. We are below budget by £33,000, and £25,000 of that is a positive movement since month 3 at the last point at which we reported this. So in terms of the recommendations, first of all, those set out on page 8 of Pack B. The first one is pleased to note the budget monitoring position and the Treasury Management information that's provided, as outlined in Part A of this report. And the second recommendation is to approve the financial recommendations, which are set out on Part B of this report, which are set out on page 30. Those recommendations are, I think, fully described in the paper and don't need, therefore, any embellishment from me. So I therefore move those two recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. It is undoubtedly the case that we are living in exceptionally challenging times and overlaid with a high degree of uncertainty. This is a financial expression of the Council, which evidences our sound financial management. But the flip side of this is the enormous amount of work that's gone on behind scenes to change the way this council operates to reduce the running costs. And you alluded to that in the savings targets that's being achieved. A great deal of that progress is down to your leadership and stewardship, Martin, and I thank you for that. But it's also down to the work of the officer team, who, on top of delivering their day-to-day business, we are asking them to reconfigure, reshape, and take on the additional challenge of change. And it is great to see the expression of that work being reported financially here. And it is to our council's great credit that you are able to report in such a positive way. So thank you everybody for your work. Colleagues, are those recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The final item, item 12, is a public preview of matters considered in private in part 2, and the purpose of that report, as I say, is to give some more information, greater transparency on those issues that we will now consider in private. So thank you for your attention this evening. Anybody who may be following us online, and good night, and we will now move into part 2. Thank you.